Welcome back to the Stag Raw podcast. This episode is an absolutely exciting one. I'm joined by two lads who, if you're following podcasting in New Zealand, probably don't need too much of an introduction, but Seamus Marten and Steve Holloway from Between Two Beers. Had the pleasure of driving up to Hamilton to record this one in the NZME studios. Thankfully, Steve hit record. I was watching him carefully. And we got an awesome chat done with the lads. They are absolutely crushing it out there. Over 120,000 downloads a month, which makes this operation look pretty small fry. But they're doing wonderful things, connecting with the ACC and having incredible guests. People like Mark Ellis, Paul Henry, Chris Cairns, Josh Kronfeld, the team from the ACC, Jeremy Wowes, Leigh Hart, Mike Minogue. Jason Hoyt, he's a personal favourite. Fantastic episodes there on Between Two Beers. If you haven't come across them, make sure you head over to their podcast and check it out. You won't be disappointed, and you'll likely hit subscribe. Make sure you've hit subscribe to the Stag Raw podcast, as well left a review, your 5-star ratings. Not many people have connected with that, given what our following is, so that's always interesting. And be sure to share it with friends. Put it in your socials, tag myself and the Between Two Beers guys. That'd be lovely if you could please do that. That's how the likes of Between Two Beers get out to 120,000, and hopefully we can do the same here on the Stag Raw. Plenty to go round. We crack into some Ārepas. If you're wanting to order yourself a supply of Ārepa off their website, you can use the code STAGRAW for 20% off. And without further ado, let's dive into this awesome conversation with the lads from Between Two Beers, Seamus and Steve. Enjoy. Good. Between Two Beers meets Ārepa. Seamus, you were saying you got the shits last time, though.
I did, yeah. I got one of these from across the road from where I worked, and between opening it and drinking it on the walk back and then eating lunch, I then had violent diarrhea. Good.
As we said, it's probably the pine bark extract or vitamin C.
Yeah, I Googled straight away thinking, it can't be the chicken.
Common guest, Morgan Penn was speaking the other day about high-dose vitamin C, how quickly it can move through you.
How did you find Morgan Penn?
Oh, it's nerve-wracking, isn't it?
Did she come after you with some sexual chat?
Well, yeah.
Obviously.
Well, the first one I was recording in a cupboard. Oh. I've got to the ground. I was recording in a cupboard, for acoustics. It didn't really work. But, on Zoom. So that chat was very nerve-wracking. We talked about softcock worship.
We didn't go there now, did we?
Go there?
No.
And then the second time I went up to Devonport, it was
hardcock worship.
Yeah. No, well, she was trying to tell me that you can fix a broken coccyx with a few therapies. I said I'm okay with it. Thanks, Morgan.
Yeah, it's an intimidating situation, eh? Not a broken coccyx, but
both. Both.
Yeah,
both
intimidating. I'm going to have to Google softcock worship later on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the most popular episodes if you want to.
So she was saying too much vitamin C gives you the shits.
No, it does. That's a good cure if you've got a cold. Just overdose on vitamin C, and you hit the mark when you've got the shits. Okay. Yeah.
I'll take that one away.
Didn't learn that one in the States, Stephen?
No, I didn't come across that one. No. That's good knowledge. Knowledge is power.
What part of the States were you in?
I was in New Jersey, Monmouth University. I don't know if you remember a man of similar age, Jersey Shore. Remember the show?
Watched a lot of it.
Jersey Shore, yeah. So we were down sort of in that area. So a lot of blowouts and guidos, they called them, sort of the oomph dance music. But yeah, good time.
Were you there that actual time? When it was blowing up, Snooki and...
It was a little bit after it, actually,
situation.
I think. Yeah. Because it went on for a few years. That's it. Mike Sorrentino.
What was the...
J-Well?
The DJ. Paulie D.
Paulie D. Yeah.
What was his song?
I think they're going again, those guys, eh? I
hope so. One of them went to prison, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, maybe even Paul, Mikey. Mike might have gone to prison.
The situation. Ronnie and Sammy Sweetheart.
Yeah, you got it, man. You got it.
I frothed that show. I loved it.
Yeah, it was a good show. So yeah, that was where that was the scene I was in.
Did you GTL?
Did you have the shirt before the shirt?
Yeah. What was GTL?
Jim Dan Laundry.
Jim Dan Laundry.
Yeah. Okay. Memory's not what it once was.
So naturopathy wasn't big in New Jersey.
No. It was the school I went to was a very rich private school. So you were either on a sports scholarship like I was, or your parents had shitloads of money. And so we lived in these ridiculous like seaside mansions. Like there was a soccer house and there was like 11 bedrooms in it, and I had one of them, and there was just parties there, 2 times a week, and it was just a ridiculous opulent mansion. And yeah, I sort of thought that was normal. That was me at 18 thinking that this was what the world was.
So Thursdays and Saturdays, was it?
Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, yeah, depending on when the games were.
Jesus.
But, yeah.
Good party time.
Good.
It's one of my big regrets not going to US college.
Yeah.
I should have. Dr. Wilcox was our football coach at Hamilton Boys High, and he was like, you should definitely go.
So is that how you got there?
Eh?
So a school teacher was like, get over there.
Well, that was how he encouraged me. I don't know whether Doc encouraged you to go that path.
No, he was too focused on his push-ups.
He was.
Did he hold a record for was it pull-ups or push-ups?
Push-ups. I think he had the New Zealand record for most consecutive push-ups.
Yeah. But that's how I got over there. One of Scotty Granville, who was a few years older than me, like a bit of a legend in Waikato football circles, he went to Monmouth, and we were looking for a scholarship opportunity. Reached out to Scotty. He said he sort of pulled me over with him. But that was how it worked back then. If you had a Kiwi link, that was as good as gold. Like
because I think Mikey Cunningham went.
That's a name.
He's the year. He was the year ahead of me, and then I can't quite remember the next guy from Caversham who was the year below me who went over. But yeah, that's about all I have. And did Chisholm? Did he go? John Chisholm go?
JC.
Yeah.
Holy hell.
Because he was playing with my brother. So
really,
yeah.
who's he?
Oh no, he was just humble goalkeeper from Invercargill.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, a few federation tournaments and yeah.
Small world.
Oh, it's I've got the old Queen's Park.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that straight away.
Do you know much about the Southern Premier League?
I would know. I would hazard a guess. I would know far more than Stephen does about the Southern Premier League.
Shay's got a wealth of little cultural niche knowledge about lots of different topics. So yeah.
So we were in the Southland Spirit days. Yeah, we had Craig Chipperdale come down to Invercargill.
Yeah.
And actually, I went when I moved to Auckland. I tried my luck at Central United, and old Chipper was there, but that wasn't enough of an in. I think I needed to change my name to O'Conovich.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would have helped.
That would have definitely helped. Queen's Park not too much. The only weird reference I have to Southland football is an Adrian Fonaty went down there, who was a twin, who like these Samoan twins. They ripped up secondary school football in Auckland, and Adrian ended up going down there, and Damien became a bodybuilder. He might have been at Waikato FC when you were there, actually.
I do remember a bodybuilder.
He wasn't a bodybuilder then, but he became one. But he was a big.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
He was a big Samoan.
Did he get into trouble with the law? No, different bodybuilder.
I think
got into trouble with the law.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But I don't want to stake my reputation on it.
We're going down rabbit holes.
We've gone into some areas.
Yeah, it's John Herman got back in the news at the start of the year. That would have been great.
Well, that's where he cut his teeth, isn't it? Down
yeah.
your
Well,
way?
he changed my life. That guy.
Really?
Yeah. So I still live by look good, feel good, play good. Thanks to John Herman.
He was before his time.
Oh, it was come to Invercargill, like what a random spot, and he was just bringing up video and telling us all these formations and passing it back to the goalkeeper and like playing it from the back, and we're like, what do you mean? Don't you just kick it down the field and hope for the best?
Oh, is that where he started? I don't know that. Yeah. Yes. Shit, he cut a path, eh? Yes. What, in the span of how many years he's...
probably spanned 3 or 4 years.
Coaching at a World Cup?
Oh, no. He probably had 3 or 4 years down south.
Yeah.
He made his way up to North Shore.
Yeah.
Went to the woman here, or the under-20 woman.
That's it.
Yeah. And then he was off to Canada.
Not long after that, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he did. He started in Dunedin, in Invercargill. That's a throwback.
Yeah, so that was good. We had John Hewitson, who we bought out, coaching us for Youth League, and yeah, we were just like you were saying about Jersey Shore. When Geordie Shore came along, we were just like, it's John Herman.
Yeah,
that's the guy.
That's the guy. Yeah, no, so it was crazy life, and then Central United. I was like, oh, I'm not Croatian.
So was that? So did you play a lot growing up?
Growing up, yeah. And
right.
then I switched allegiances after one game against Waitakere, coming off the bench and scoring for the reserves, and then we had exams that week, and it was kind of like, no, you can't play next week. I was like, mate, I scored last week.
And that was it?
That was it. And then I got angry, went and played rugby, went to Eden Rugby Club, and
Really?
did Eden varsity. So I caught the end of Josh Cromfield at varsity. And
Was that the second coming of Josh Cromfield at varsity?
he was the coach then of the A's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it true what he on our episode with him? He said he would go to the student parties as a mature student.
Yeah, so we got his last, when I was in the under-21s Colts, or under-20s Colts, he was coaching his last season with varsity as the coach. So he must have been finishing uni, him and John Lensley.
Yeah.
And he left and JL carried on. Yeah, they were good. And like you said, that was when 660 was starting to creep along, and like they'd play at the rugby club, and yeah, people would try to get him to scull a jug and do a kick stand. That was
And
when
he
he
would.
when he said that story, I was like, I saw you do that. Yeah, but no, I wasn't part of his team. But yeah, in that circle was pretty good. Sitting over from the junior table over to the senior table, being like, fucking hell, that's Josh Cromfield right there.
Yeah.
And they had the one of the Jubilees while I was there, and so yeah, it was like Mark Ellis, John Timu, lots of big names coming down.
All the Highlanders owners
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, Tane Randall.
Tane Randall.
Good throwback.
Mm-hmm.
Gavin Douglas would froth over this.
Yeah, I don't think Tane was at varsity, unfortunately, but yeah, like what a era. Yeah, even being from Southland, like I remember somehow being in my grandparents' crib. You know what a crib is, eh?
Mm.
It's a batch.
Just a batch, like a real like box with maybe 2 rooms if you're lucky, sort of. And yeah, we're watching Otago win. There must have been about 96 or something like that. Win at Carisbrook, and it was like, we're not even from Otago, but
Do you carry that parochialism to this day? Your Southland parochialism?
I thought I did, and then I lived in Hawke's Bay, and holy fuck, those people were parochial.
Really?
Hawke's Bay's another level, eh? Like,
Really?
Yeah.
Must be something about that little outpost of
I think that's
North Island, New Zealand.
Yeah.
Southland is like proper. Southland is froth Southland.
I think it's because we get beaten up on, and then it's funny coming to a place like Hamilton, the other place that gets beaten up on.
Yeah, it does. Hence the ambassador movement. Yeah.
Yeah. How did that start out?
I true story.
Because you're Taupo.
I am Taupo. I grew up in Taupo. So the ambassador thing started as a throwaway line. I heard it in Hamilton City Council when I was working. I came back from overseas and I was working in the council, and they were talking about having Hamilton ambassadors, and they were like volunteer people downtown that just guide people around, and it kind of got shortened to ambassadors, and I was like, fuck, that is cool, like let's just use that, let's just talk about that. But nobody seemed to kind of pick it up, and then as the podcast kind of continued, I was like, let's just drop that in and go from there.
See, this is interesting to me because I've never heard this version of the story.
Well, why would I let that version of
all
the story out?
I had been told is that you came up with this phrase.
I did. It was
But
Hamilton.
it sounds to me in the retelling of that someone else came up with it.
Yeah,
and
that's because you're looking at it half empty. It was Hamilton ambassadors, and I said, ambassadors.
Okay, but didn't you just say that someone else was saying ambassadors?
Like get some people, volunteers.
Yeah, Hamilton ambassadors.
Yeah. Right.
You're going to have to listen to it on the replay. Maybe I did say that.
I want to roll the tape back.
Yeah.
Nah, good on you, man, because it's a good thing that you've created or someone else created and you've sort of
I'm surprised no
reworked.
one's... I kind of feel like we should probably trademark it.
Him.
Yeah, but I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, but to take over Shay's story, it is, like you say, Hamilton gets shit on a lot, and it took me a while to come to this proud of Hamilton place, but I really am proud of Hamilton now, and it's like a movement, and it's a little bit similar, I guess, to, we had Steve Dunstan on, the Huffer founder, a few weeks ago, and we just recently released that podcast, and then he had a moment where they created the I Heart New Zealand t-shirts, and up until then, like having that on a shirt or being proud or patriotic of New Zealand was just not really a done thing. And I was kind of thinking as he was saying it, it's like, fuck, that's like Hamilton. Like, who's Chiefs aside, like Chiefs is separate. Like Hamilton, like how many things do you see out there that are just like proud of Hamilton? It's always people sort of dunking on Hamilton.
Yeah, there's not that much.
So like ambassador, I don't know, it might have some legs. It's in its very beginning stages. I don't know. it's kind of a name for our community, but it gets a bit confusing because people think
You
have to love Hamilton or like Hamilton to be part of it. It's like, no, it's kind of like Taylor Swift has the Swifties between two beers. There's nothing that works with that. You're just ambassadors.
Yeah.
You'll be pleased to know I had somebody get the reference today.
Really?
Yeah, when I left work, they're like, what are you doing, Ryan? Going back to Tukoroa. I was like, oh, I'm actually going to Hamilton. Going to record a podcast with these guys. I said, one of the girls listens to podcasts. Said, do you know Between Two Beers? She's like, I know Between Two Ferns. I was like, hey.
Yeah.
We get that a lot as well.
Yeah. No, I have to admit, I sort of, when I got introduced to you guys, I misconstrued it. They said, I listened to Between Two Beers. I was like, oh, yeah, Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura. And they're like,
yeah. Was that 2 beers, 1K?
Yeah, 2 beers, 1K.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until the Luke Kiwi's podcast, it was like Between Two Beers. I was like, oh, that's what that guy was talking about.
Yeah. I've seen one, there's like a Sky rugby or league show from Australia. It's like Between Two Posts.
Yeah.
I saw that the other day. I was like,
Morgan Turanui and
yeah.
I think Rod Kafer or someone like that. But someone sent us, took a picture of it and sent it to me and said, oh, they're stealing your IP. Stealing your IP. Like, we kind of borrowed quite heavily off Zach Galifianakis.
We kind of stole.
To begin with.
Yeah. While you're at the Hamilton Council, did you get any seed Waikato come across you played?
Any seed?
Yeah. No, it's a youth organization, or not even youth, young adults.
Yeah, I know what that is, but no, not direct contact. I was H3, so I was the venues and events unit of Hamilton City Council.
Oh, good. They just would have used your venues, at the gardens.
Yeah. That was that. Well, that one's only just gone into H3. That was separate again. It was councils are an interesting beast to work for.
Yeah. And then how's the old cricket? And there's lights on at the stadium tonight.
Yeah, that's the FIFA Women's World Cup gearing up. They're doing all their testing for broadcast, I guess. The time stamping this, but the Zambia versus Japan game is here on Saturday night.
Has been on Saturday night.
Yeah, sorry, yes. And what a game it was. Who would have picked that result?
Fantastic game. Yeah. So, who would have seen it? Yeah.
It's all happening in Hamilton.
Yeah. So, do you get a bit sort of envious to see that going on, having been part of events?
Oh, I do, because when I really wanted to be a part of it, and it just hasn't worked out that way. So my involvement will be as a fan. But with
what did you want to do?
Just again as a I don't know, as someone who is proud of Hamilton, and I was the venue general manager for the Under-20 World Cup that we had here in 2015 football FIFA tournament. And I'd been involved in the 2008 Under-17. So the two FIFA tournaments that New Zealand had, I'd been part of the local organising committee, and I wanted to be a part of this one again. Someone that's proud of Hamilton, kind of felt a little bit of a personal connection to it, given kind of FIFA history, and I went for a couple of roles and got turned down for both of them. So I kind of was like, oh, okay, well, it's clearly not meant to be. So try and park that and just go as a fan.
I was on the other side of that, saying don't hire him because I need him free. I need him freed up for podcast recordings.
What's happening on the other side of the paywall?
At the Herald?
Yeah.
Lots happening there at the moment. It's kind of a crazy time in journalism where paywall is working. It's been there for 4 years now. That is my main job, is essentially to try to get people to get their credit card out and pay for sports news. So there's a real craft of creating engaging headlines and synopsis and stories to back it up. But we've had great success. Actually, funny story, we had Mark Ellis on the podcast a while ago, and it was our most popular ep ever. And he sort of popped his head out, did this epic recording with us, and then sort of went for cover again. And then one of my colleagues who we've also had on the podcast, Chris Ratu, was sort of scouting around. He does these Q&As every week. He's like, who would be a good Q&A? I was like, I reckon you could get Mark Ellis, because he's just, he's invested in the Highlanders. He's kind of he's back in the news a little bit. Get a Q&A, just ask him a bunch of random shit. And so we did it, and we put it on the website on, was it Thursday afternoon? And it has been the most successful sports story of the year in terms of premium subscribe people that have signed up to read it, and audience. It's had over 200,000 page views, which is just insane. It just shows like the energy, the engagement of the guy still. And I was thinking about why it was so successful. It was kind of framed around why I'm leaving New Zealand. So again, a guy who doesn't talk a lot is talking about leaving New Zealand. Under, I guess, surrounded by this picture of, you know, quite divisive political lines and leaving New Zealand and people dunking on New Zealand being quite a hot topic at the moment. So here's a guy who's kind of, check the lad, he's always happy, he's always up for a laugh, and he's saying quite serious about why he's leaving New Zealand and the issues in the country. And just that tease was just like a magnet, and it's just been the most, the biggest story of the year in sport.
Yeah. Imagine how many more people would have subscribed if people like me didn't screenshot it for all their mates and send it around Facebook Messenger.
Yeah, there was one answer about like leaving for Italy, which I saw got shared so many times on Twitter. But again, that's great promo for us because it's just one answer. People want to go and read the whole thing. So,
and then with an event like this coming up, how do you feel about geeking out on football?
It's an interesting one because we're driven now by audience. You know, it's a business. We know what our premium subscribers like reading. We know what sort of stories they're going to sign up to read. And traditionally, women's football hasn't been great with numbers, but we are ramping it up big time for the Women's World Cup, and our coverage has reflected that, and we're going to be going all in. And we've seen really good signs in the week. You know, it's kind of like Kiwi audiences. They just tune in the week before a big event, or the day of. You know, I imagine like Thursday morning, people are going to be like, "Holy shit, this thing's huge!" Again, time stamping, but this is before. I'm talking about before the New Zealand-Norway game. So we're starting to see it with audiences and trends, and people starting to buy into it. But we are very late to the party, as a general rule, Kiwis.
It's like America's Cup, eh? No one cares about yachting until the America's Cup starts, and then everyone is like an expert. And the coverage of it just increases as well. Like I know Sail GP's trying to, I guess, tie in between major sailing events, but at the America's Cup, just people froth it.
They do. The America's Cup is a big one, and there's sports like that. I never really got sailing. I still don't really get it. It's just not my thing, you know. I never grew up with Hamilton, you know. So, you know.
It'll look good down the river.
But audience is huge for sailing. America's Cup. There's two big winners for premium sport audience. All Blacks, far and away number one. Anything All Blacks just goes off in America's Cup. Anything Team New Zealand, like it's. Yeah, I can't really explain it. But then you think, oh, what are the demographics that are paying for premium sports news? You know, it's that older, middle class, whatever, wealthy crowd. So, yeah, it makes sense.
We part of the Rugby World Cup?
Part of the coverage.
Yeah.
That's huge, Rugby World Cup for us. That's our biggest time of the year.
But like with the women, did that sort of surprise the demographics? Or again, it wasn't your audience.
It was a bit of a slow burner. Like after that semi-final win, it was huge. It was massive. Up until then, it had been doing okay. But then after that, huge. From that was a real moment. That semi-final win, and then the final, and then just the storylines. Like those women became superstars. Like Ruby Tui is probably the most coveted, highest profile athlete in New Zealand right now. I'd say probably charges the most for speaking engagements, is just like the most in demand. We can't get her on the podcast.
I remember emailing her manager, and he'd just be like, "No, you have to wait." Like it's probably not going to happen.
But the name recognition of all those women, like we had Sarah Hirini and Kendra Coxedge, Stacey Flula, like they're all just names. And I don't think you have that now with the football ferns. You know, they don't have that same star power, that same name recognition, and they won't go as far in the tournament. So it is kind of different. But there's a real moment there for women's rugby, and it's been great. They're sort of on a level now.
Yeah, no, it's pretty exciting. So how did you guys come up with like talking football? Like that's what I think the timestamp of your podcast being pre the pandemic is quite good, because like you were chatting football before you had nothing to do.
We were both involved with our local club, Melville United. Shay was the manager. I was kind of playing, and I was injured, and I was just like sort of there, but had a bit of time to give back in some way. So I thought we would do like a video every week as sort of just like a bit of a light-hearted, fun look at, you know, team news or what's coming up. And like my best mate Sam was the coach.
Oh, I thought I was you.
My other best mate Shay was the manager, and my other best mate Maney was the coach. So there's 2 co-coaches and Shay and me, and we're like this tight group of 4 mates.
He saved it well.
So we did, and it was like real talk with Will Kane or something.
It was like Thursday nights at Gower as well.
Thursday nights, and I started sort of editing videos, and we did little interviews and stuff. And you were just behind the camera.
What year was this?
2020? No, you played in 20.
No, this was before the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we started in 2019. 17? So this must have been 2017, 2018.
18.
Yeah.
18, because I came back in 17, so it was 18.
Yeah.
2018.
Mm. And Shay was behind the camera at that point.
Yeah, I didn't want to be really in front.
Which thinking, like, we've
in front of camera.
When you tell the story like that far back, you were really hesitant to be talent, weren't you?
Oh, I hated it. It still doesn't sit that easily or comfortably. But yeah, Stephen would sit and I would fucking no idea what I was doing. We'd be like, action, and then go for it. And then be like, maybe we do it slightly differently. And it was cool, man. It was actually really cool. Funnily enough, someone shared the Aaron Scott 300 video. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Aaron, who was our first guest on the podcast. And that was really good. That was some of your best work. This video that you put together to celebrate our mate's 300th game for Melbourne United. But that's
a lot of footy.
It's a lot of footy. And that's just with that one club. He's got another 200 games in National League with Waitakere and Waikato FC as well.
But to carry the story along, it kind of lit the fuse of a creative outlet. Like I was working at the Herald. I can't remember what job you had at the time.
But was it the council?
But we also did a few commentaries on games. I don't think I ever did one with you, but I did one with.
What platform did you use?
Facebook.
Yeah, we had some guys at Auckland University that were ahead of their time. They created this thing called Spork, and it was a way to, like, I commentated the national squash champs one time.
Really?
This was like 2013, and I don't know how we had the bandwidth to be able to commentate live sport, but.
It was a Facebook Live, that you and Jezza did.
Facebook Live, yeah.
And you and Macca.
And it was fun, and it seemed to sort of flow quite easily. And then I think I'd been at Shay for ages, like, we should start a podcast. And
I didn't know what that was.
Yeah. I was like, nah, man, we should start a podcast. Like, I
think in the background as well, I was always asking Stephen, why don't your journalists ask any real questions of sports stars?
Yeah.
Like sort of fanning the flames that way too. And
now we get sports stars and don't ask any real questions.
No, we cannot ask a real question for fear of them walking out.
Nah, but
ruining a career.
Yeah, exactly. Blacklisting ourselves.
Made a call. Like, we'd been talking about it for ages, and I was like, nah, fuck it. I'm going to send a message. We're like, who should our first guest be? Aaron Scott. We just talked about, 300 games, like a grassroots legend. He'd played for the All Whites. He'd had a bit of like bad luck and missing out on a World Cup. I was like, there's got to be a story there. Like, let's get him in. I was like, Aaron, come around next Thursday, my garage. We want to record a podcast. Are you keen? He's like, yeah, sounds good. So I was like, all right. So we went out and bought a mic, JB Hi-Fi's, like a $200 omnidirectional mic. And Shay was on the beers at the time, so we got ourselves.
Did you click it to omnidirection as well? Plenty of people have made that mistake.
Yeah, I've made that mistake a few times as well.
Blue Yeti, wasn't it?
Yeah. The first USB mic I got recommended by Jay Reeve, and I interviewed him with it around the wrong way. It sounded like I was in the toilet. I was like, fantastic.
Oh yeah,
I don't even want to listen to some of the audio that we've got for
so many of those.
Episode 1 to 11 are pretty ropey, I reckon.
Yeah. So we did it. We did it with Aaron, and listening back now, I'm sure it was a bit of a train wreck, but we enjoyed it enough to want to do another one. And so who should be second guest be? Paul Nixon, like my former coach and teacher at Boys High. He's played pro over in UK and Singapore and stuff. And he's got a story. And then we found that putting a microphone on a table gave you permission to ask people questions you wouldn't otherwise, and really, I think me and Shay naturally are very inquisitive people, and we get energized by genuinely hearing people's stories and what made them the people they are today. So Nico's a great example of a guy, he coached me for years and years. I always have a chat with him in a beer, but his wife died. He had 4 kids and his wife passed away, and I was always so interested about it, but there's never a time to talk about that sort of thing. But you get them on a podcast and you say, we're going to ask you about your life. It gives you permission. And I was like, fuck, there's something here. I remember that being a moment where I was like, shit, that's something interesting. And then we had Shay Bunce. Like, again, like these people listening to this would have no idea who they are, but really sort of, I don't know, big names in our world. And we'd had a little bit of a run-in at Waikato FC, like we had a bit of a fallout and stuff. So I was like, fuck, let's talk about the fallout. Like, let's just get into stuff which we find is interesting, and gave us permission.
Yeah, it was kind of like, because it wasn't footy to begin with, there was sort of like this general understanding, and you can probably appreciate this from grassroots sport, is that everybody's got kind of that little go-to story that people know about, and it was kind of like, well, let's pull the curtain back on that little, let's pull the thread on that story and kind of work it through. And it was really niche, and people loved it at the start. Like, I remember the Buncey Stephen kind of fallout. It was like a gag amongst our group of friends, and then all of a sudden it was, I think Buncey then like made an on-air apology to another player that he'd had a run-in with, and that got like chat going in the community. And then there was this thing back in the day. It was called the Northern League Forum, and it was like a message board, and people would go on and post anonymously and basically just fucking stir up shit. But it was kind of like, it was that come to life, not, I guess, in an anonymous way, but just kind of the sharing and retelling a story. So a lot of our early episodes are just football people that we knew. Stephen's brother-in-law and another mate of ours, Tinks, that was a great, they were both really, really good youth footballers, but kind of never really progressed to the level that everybody kind of thought they would. So like Stevie said, it was an opportunity to kind of go, well, what went wrong?
Yeah.
And have a serious kind of conversation around it, which was pretty fucking groundbreaking when I think about it.
Yeah, and just as you're saying that, looking back, like, podcasts are very popular and hot at the moment, and everyone wants a nice shiny new object. But I think back to the reason that we've stayed the course and the reason that it's been successful is because in those early stages, there was no expectation whatsoever of audience, of making any money from it, of anything, except we just enjoyed doing it. It was our favourite time of the week to go and hang out with these people we found interesting, have a couple of beers and just unpack their lives, and it didn't seem like we would travel to Auckland to talk to these people, which was quite a big uptaking with sort of busy lives, but it just made sense, we just week after week we're like, oh, who are we going to do next? And it's sort of,
because is that the same for you? Like, you're deeper than we are in this game. Is it just a natural curiosity that you've got as well?
Yeah, and like I was saying to Stephen before, you get to the end of one weekend and you go, fuck, what am I going to do? And then I'll just see somebody that I'm curious about, and then all of a sudden it'll fall into place and you'll get it done. And it's just like, oh, I've got another one in the can. Next week's fine and sorted. And yeah, I just love talking to people, like, reasonably extroverted. I work as an optometrist, probably don't have enough time with that, and so it's just great to then be able to ask more and more and more questions of people and find out their story. Like, my tagline's life less ordinary, and so it's kind of like, that's all it needs to be. Like, how the hell did your journey and path end up there? And I know for myself, I've done a whole lot of random things and been on the cusp of a few stuff, but it's kind of like, well, I'm always striving for my little goal, and I don't ever feel like I've succeeded in anything. But, you look externally at other people and go, holy cow, you're doing well. And I'm sure it's in their head like, no, I'm going there. and I love hearing that story and that continued drive to do something. So
how many times have you had people go, oh, I've got nothing really to talk about?
Often.
All the time, eh? Yeah. I'm worried about that mouse, Steve. Are you shifting that mouse?
Don't worry about me, man. Don't worry about yourself.
We've still got red lines going. Boom, boom,
oh,
boom.
yeah,
So
okay. Good.
Are you still involved in football, or like you've got a young family now?
Yeah, not as much. As probably the most detached I've been from football ever, I'd say.
Can you watch it? I don't know about that. I've heard a lot about Coach Stephen on Saturday.
Well, yeah, I meant like Melville and like men's football. I coach both of my kids' teams on Saturday mornings, so that's great. I love that. But in terms of, I've been to fewer games this year than probably any other year of my life, watching first team football, and it's just time. Yeah, busy. What about you?
I'm the same. Like, for the first 6 months of the year, I think I went to 2 games over Easter, and that was it. and then I've had a couple of overseas trips, and then I've come back and I've watched 3 or 4 games now. I actually really like not being hands-on. I like just being able to turn up at kickoff, watch a game, and then leave. Whereas previous involvement was like all in, fucking dropping the kit off on a Monday to get laundered, picking the kit up on a Thursday, doing the bibs, cooking the meals. Like I was fucking all in for best part of probably 4 or 5 years. But again, that was our mate that was coaching. And it was fun because you get to spend time together, and you know, you go away to Auckland. We made the National League last year, so you're flying down to Christchurch and flying to Wellington, and it was all kind of whiz-bang cool. And then at the end of last year, it was like, fuck, I'm just knackered. And he left the coaching kind of side of it. I made a commitment to kind of stay involved, and I went down the first, I think one time at the start of the year, and I was just like, fuck, like I don't have a personal connection there. Like some players had left, there were some players that stayed, but it just didn't feel like it was a real happy place, like the changing room and everything about it was kind of like, oh, this is real safe, and you kind of had a big role to play in it. And then it was all different, and it was like, oh, I don't really fit here anymore. So now I just go and watch games, and then go home.
How'd you both get into football?
It was the only sport I wanted to play when I grew up in Taupo. So it was tennis in summer and football in winter. And I went to the UK with my dad in 1991, and I came back, and I was the only kid that had goalie gloves at the football club. So I became the goalie.
And you're mad, eh?
Well, I guess
all goalkeepers.
I was maybe a little bit unhinged. But when you grow up in a small town like that, you basically have 14 players, and that's your squad, and then you're the club team and the rep team. So we would go to Rotorua, and we would go down to Taranaki, and we would play, and I was just kind of loved it and carried on from there. So played all the way through until I retired at 22, maybe 23.
Was this after
Left
the
a lot
finals?
Left a lot of good years on the table.
Yeah, I did leave a lot. Actually, in hindsight, I
Still got a few good ones in you.
No, I do not have. No, goalkeepers get good in their late 30s, and those years have passed me now. So I stopped playing properly probably in 2003. Yeah, and that was when everyone was peaking. That was when everyone else was peaking. And then I just made cameo appearances every now and again after that. So it kind of stopping playing kind of coincided with working in football. So I started at Oceania Football 2005 and just started flying all over the world, and was impossible to commit to anything. Yeah. And I was Stephen's mentor at Boys High. Taught him everything he knows.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it.
Stephen's a child prodigy.
My dad, Bruce, was a sports reporter at the Waikato Times for over 20 years, and his round was football for a long time. So that meant weekends were travelling to watch Waikato in the National League or Melville and write about it. So my childhood was just every weekend it would be based around football, where the whole family would go on a trip. He'd be riding, me and my brother and our mate Sam, who we've spoken about, would be playing on the sidelines. So it was just, we were a football family. And then, I sort of made my way through the Waikato rep scene, and met Shay at Boys High, and just,
Your life changed after that, really, didn't it?
Yeah, I was good. I was good at football, but not good enough to be a professional, which is quite frustrating. Like, I just lacked pace. Like, I could see the game really well. I had all the ideas, but I just didn't have the speed necessary to go pro. So I sort of battled around after college, like trialled at a few teams. Spend a week at Barnet, a week at Kidderminster, did some time in one of the state league sides over in Australia, but then sort of bounced back and realised, my level is just good National League player. Sort of made my peace with that, and
Are you still Waikato FC's all-time leading goal scorer?
Well, yeah, Waikato FC folded, didn't they? So
eternal.
Yeah, I guess I am.
So without the pace, what sort of formation would they play for you to get so many goals?
It was kind of like a goal hanger.
Fucking hell. Get your tongue out of his ass. Gee.
Because I got nicknamed Bulldozer because I was about the same, not enough pace, but just sturdy enough, and we'd play 3-5-1, and it fucking sucked because I'd get my ass kicked out of me.
Yeah, right.
But
yeah. put it in the mixer. Yeah, I don't know. I would always play with a pacey striker. Like my best partnership was with Michael Guider, who was lightning fast. And I'd sort of, I don't know, just feed off his scraps and the ball would bumble into my path and score.
Number 4 on the Melville all-time goal-scoring list?
Is it?
Or 3?
Cozzy, Mark Evans.
Evans, Cozzy.
Yeah.
You?
Yeah, maybe.
What was it about Melville? Because playing rugby in Waikato, like obviously we had some good battles out there in rugby, but what was the vibe with that in football out there?
I followed my friends, so I never actually played. I played.
Why were they such a good club?
I played 2 games for them. I don't know. They've always had the best facilities. They've got 8 pitches there. No, it's just one of those ones. It's always Melville or Wanderers, depending on who's there. I know now, they're definitely, because our mate Sam set up an academy, which means that they can actually bring their own talent through rather than paying people, whether you like it or not, open secret, bringing people down the motorway to play for them and train 2 nights a week. So I think it's kind of built on those foundations that they've got a bigger base to select from and kind of working on their youth. But it's kind of a weird club, like a yo-yo club, like kind of works in 3-year cycles of boom and bust, depending on which Welsh player comes out to support Steve to score goals.
Yeah. I think I just follow my dad. I was thinking about my life. Like I just follow my dad's path. You know, he was a sports journo. What have I become? I never really wanted to be a sports journo, but I sort of found my way into that. He was president at Melville for about 10 years. So, you know, followed him there, played in the age group teams and first team, and yeah, it just seems like a good fit. It feels like home there. Yeah, like I say, a lot of our really close friends have played and coached and know the old boys. It's
Did you ever play any other club?
I played Wanderers. Yeah, with Rog. Rog for a season there, but otherwise it was just Melville, I think.
You're saying about that dirty, open little secret that people get paid. Like, why can't club football be semi-professional? Why can't we have like systems? Like I said, I went to Central United for half a season. That was coming from Invercargill. That was bloody eye-opening. Kiwitea Street, like holy shit. Like, why can't it be like that?
I think it all stems from trust funding. Like it kind of breaches the trust funding rules, which is where football gets most of its kind of income from. So, yeah, there'd have to be some pretty interesting ways to kind of get around it. And there are interesting ways to get around it, whether fucking administrators want to be real with the fact that it happens or not.
But yeah, I think that's right. Because so much of the money is funded by, I'm not sure if it still is, this is years ago, like pokies and trust funding is where it sort of like props the league up. But in order for that money to come through, it has to be amateur. It can't be professional.
Ascot Park Hotel, ILT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's like 150 a week or something that they.
Yeah, that's the level of reimbursement that an amateur player is entitled to, outside of their coaching commitments.
Yeah.
Which they can get reimbursed for as well, or get a salary for, but those need to be declared very clearly with New Zealand football.
You've looked into so many shows.
Well, I've got a theory on how you could get around it, but it's still in progress.
Yeah. So, how does football grow in this country?
Fuck, it's a great question.
I think that the issue football has is, if you go in New Zealand, if you go and watch rugby right now, like you watch Super Rugby, you're watching the best players in the world.
Yeah.
You go and watch the Warriors, you're watching the best rugby league players in the world. You know, you go and watch a National League football game and you are watching like, the 25th level of football in the world. And when everyone can watch Champions League and World Cup and the very best on TV, and then they see live the product, which live and supporting and having that community and stuff is really important. It gets a certain amount of people there. But at the end of the day, the product is just so far removed from what people know as the best. So it's like, how do you close that bridge? Even watching A-League, it's like, yeah, it's better than National League, but it's still so far removed from the top leagues. Like if I'm watching a game on TV, unless I'm diehard Phoenix and I know the players and stuff, you know, when my time is valuable, what am I going to go for? I'll go for the better product.
It's very good. That's a very good answer.
Yeah, I think you nailed that.
Yeah. I've got nothing to add to that. I mean, qualify for some more World Cups would be a start, because then you get to see relatable players on the world stage. But until that happens more regularly, you're right. The product comparison is outrageous.
It's getting better. You watch the All Whites and see how they're doing, and all the players are playing at professional clubs. Like, it's moving in the right direction, but
That has flow on though, right? If the more guys that can play at a good level, show clubs that they are good, the more they get in, and then the more, like you say, with going to the States. So our old mates over here, what about next person off the rank? What else you got there? Who else can we grab?
Yeah.
That's
And I
gonna
think
happen.
one other point, and I'll tip a cap to our mate here, we need to have better coaches in New Zealand coaching our younger players, our better younger players. If we got better coaches coaching younger players, then they have more chance of popping out into those bigger environments. Coach the coaches.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, bro.
Wise.
That funnel story, was that
Yes.
was that like
The 16 funnels.
yeah, was that like sevens or like full on football?
Well, I don't know whether you can call the
Because we had the Alex sevens down south. That was sevens
yeah.
and sounded pretty carnage. I've never went, but
I don't know if you can call the Tauranga City Labour Weekend tournament proper football, but there was 11.
Was there a referee at least?
There was a referee, and there was 11. There was 11 aside, and that was a chance for a group of friends to reconnect over a weekend and basically lock a time in to all turn up and to kind of have a good time. And I felt the energy in the group was waning, and thought I'd do something about it single-handedly.
yeah.
I look back really fondly on those.
Yeah, they were great times.
I think as you get older, you lose close friendships, and you got to work really hard to get them and maintain them, and especially in groups. And we had a really awesome group for about 5 years. We went to this Labour Weekend tournament at Mount Maunganui, and it started off, I think the first year we were all Mexicans, and then we were Hare Krishnas, and then they were Mormon missionaries, and I can't remember the others.
Yeah, you got the timeline all out of whack.
Was that was that the playing kit or?
Yeah, so we would go
Pretty
like,
much.
but the year we went as Hare Krishnas, like it was planned like 7-8 months in advance. So it was like, grow your hair long. The day before, we're all going to have initiation ceremony. We're going to shave our heads and leave
a bit at the back.
And we had songs that we learned, and we all got so invested. And as these things snowball, it's like they just get more like bigger and better.
We had a photo of Roy Krishna as well, and that's what we were like, highly offensive now that I think about it. That I look back at it now. But Stephen's right. They were so fun, and it would be so exciting. Like, the year before Hare Krishnas was Amish.
Oh yeah.
So it was the same thing. It was like grow a beard, and then we'll do the mustache off. And my barber Murray Rose here, like I went there you had to be at the Mount Mallock, if you know Mount Maunganui. You had to be at the Mount Mallock at 7 o'clock on the Friday. Like that was the thing. But then, chat group, and we had I've still got them. We had like a Bible, like a handbook for the weekend. Yeah. The year before that was Mormon, so we each had name badges with Elder Holloway, Elder Marten, conservative haircut, white short sleeve shirt, and we played in this stuff. Yeah. It was such good times, thinking back about it. And Stephen's right, like if you couldn't commit to anything else as a friend group that year, it was like, well, Labour Weekend, you could book it out. You could book it out a year in advance. Be like, look, whatever your domestic situation was, Labour Weekend, I'm going to be away from Friday to Sunday.
Lock it in easy. Yeah.
You can do what you want. But just know that I won't be there.
I think the reason it stopped was the last year we played, we had a few ring-ins, like a few people pulled out, and we had to get a couple of guys in, and they were loose units, and there was a very liberal policy for boozing at this tournament in those days, like keg on the sideline, like funnels, open game, anyone can do anything. And then some of these ring-ins got really loose and a bit violent, and I don't know, maybe started fights or things. And then
I think that happened plenty at Alex.
And then they're like, right, next year is you can only drink in the grandstand or in the club rooms.
Well, that was the sevens in Wellington, right?
Yeah. And it was liquor licensing as well. Like that was kind of that was a challenge to get around. It was a public park.
At that point in our lives, the drinking part of it was a huge driver. And so when the threat of it being a sort of a sober weekend, I think it just sort of fell apart.
I just thinking about like me and another mate lying, just hungover, slightly drunk, laying on each other on the side and just watching someone drink a funnel nude. And like there was a family with a pushchair kind of off in the and we're cracking up, but we're also going like, that's someone's dad. Like, you know, they got young kids at home. It was like, but for that 72 hours, it was bliss.
What was the format to get 11v11 progressing?
Oh, it was 1 o'clock on field 2.
Yeah, this is brilliant. So we had a really good team. So it was all like from our football group, like really good players, and we would win every game on the first day. You know, we'd
was
have
it just like first to score games over?
No, it was like 10 minutes each way or something.
Yeah,
like it was
like
just
a shortened,
just really.
proper 11s
How did
tournament.
goals get scored?
To be clear, we were probably the only group that were really pushing the boat out alcohol-wise. There was a lot of serious teams using it as like an end-of-season kind of get-together.
But we would win every game on the first day every year, and then we would have the massivest like Saturday night, and then the Sunday games were like the knockout stages, and the first kickoff was always super early.
Yeah.
It would be like 8 a.m. or 8:30 or 9, and we would always lose that first game, like 4 years in a row. Like people wouldn't turn up or just couldn't be bothered, or you know.
Any 95 World Cup moments? You know, Jeff Wilson on the sideline.
It was basically just Sunday was turn up if you can, and then just go to the hot pools and eat burger fuel and rock paper scissors to see who could drive home. It was like it was tough.
Wow,
good, like great times, and that's kind of we've been really lucky with our friend group because that kind of organised get together has kind of continued and carried on. So we've got a new tradition, which is the 12 pubs of Christmas. So it's similar concept. Like you've just got to be at the Good George Dining Hall here in Hamilton at 3:30 for a hard 4.
Depends if there's golf beforehand.
Yeah, don't fucking. I'm a real traditionalist, so if you start with something, I believe you should kind of continue it. But golf has somehow crept into
Golf's been added. But yeah, it is continuous.
Unsanctionedly,
and we've
got added.
A new group, but it is. I think that's really important. That camaraderie, bringing blokes together.
So have you had a Christmas off the booze?
Yes, last year was my first 12 pubs of Christmas without any alcohol. The first 7 pubs were great. They really were. And then after our friend got assaulted at pub 8, it sort of just disintegrated. I give myself a pat on the back. I stayed the course all the way through to 12. I dropped Stephen home. I was able to drop a few people, obviously, because I was driving, so I dropped a few people home. But I don't think it impaired my performance because you've got to there's a game at each pub. There's a winner and a loser. I didn't have to do any shots. I think I did a shot of Tabasco maybe actually at one of them when I lost. But yeah, no, it was still enjoyable.
Yeah,
that kind of giddy excitement before the first pub of like people turning up and seeing people you hadn't seen in a little while, like that didn't escape. And as I said, for the first 7 pubs, it was great. It was after that, just things got a bit silly, and I was just gone along for the ride. But I stuck the course of time.
Oh, absolutely. And you had a good Christmas day.
Yeah, it wasn't Christmas Eve. It was early December, so I had sobered
first weekend of December.
I had sobered up by Christmas Day.
Oh, fantastic! So, guys, you've blown the podcasting world in New Zealand apart. As someone that, like I said, been doing this since 2007, it's awesome to see that the idea of a podcast could work in this market. And like for so long, you sort of looked at the charts and I was like, oh, these are all the radio shows. Oh, these are still the radio shows.
Still are.
And yeah. But then you guys sort of crop up, and I'm like, oh yeah. And then you look at what you've done, and you're like, holy shit! Like, what a buzzy journey! As you say, you just sort of started off having some fun talking to some people, then to now be part of the ACC and winning awards and stuff. What's that like?
It's cool. It's so cool. You always hear people talking about like the journey is the best part. You know, once you get there, not that we're there, like it's not the same. Like this journey is just epic. And me and Shay literally every week And like, this is crazy, eh? Like the amount of stuff, like the people we are able to talk to and the experiences we have as a result of this little show we started in my garage, is insane, really. Like it couldn't have gone any better than it's going. So yeah, I think back to the journey of how we got here. And, you know, yeah, it was football to start with. And maybe the first 20 or 30 episodes were exclusively football. And then we started to break out. And then we started thinking, well, what if we did other sports? Or what if we did a musician? Or what if we did a comedian? And I think to the link of like, I think this is pretty cool. One of the first big name guests who let us into our house when we had no profile and we were just a couple of battlers and there's no way he ever would have heard of us was Eric Murray.
Yeah, I was listening to that on the way up.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
And my family's involved with rowing, so I was just like, this is great.
Yeah, that was a real moment. There's been a number of real moments. That was a real moment. So he invited us to his place in Cambridge. He's like, bring some beers. Yeah, we'll have a yarn. And it was an awesome episode. He sunk, I think we bought 12 beers. I think he had about 10.
I just could hear bottle caps.
Yeah, he was 8 deep in the first 20 minutes. He was hoovering them back.
So epic episode with him. And then later we find out that at some other social situation, he had been at the same gathering as Ryan Fox. And he had spoken to Ryan Fox about this cool podcast he's on and said, you should go on it. So that came back to us somehow. So he sent Ryan Fox a message. And
No, that was me.
Was it you?
He was at the cricket and I was standing next to him and I was like, I think eventually he clicked who I was, and
do you know who I am?
That we'd had him on the podcast because Emma Twigg was at the same thing. So I was sitting at a table, and Emma was one of the first people, and I consider Emma a friend. And then Eric came, and we were kind of three of us were talking, and then I think the penny dropped, and he was like, "Oh, I really enjoyed the podcast. You know who would be good? Would be Foxy." And then I went, "Oh yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to have him on." And he sent him a text, and he goes, "Yeah, Foxy's keen to come on," and that was it. Like.
Yeah,
it was.
How did you then pick up and run with it? Did he like give you his number, or what was the vibe?
I think he did. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how the majority of the time it's literally we just get their email address or their number and we have a pretty thoughtful message and make it sort of as appealing as possible. But then so from that we get Ryan Fox on, epic episode with him, like loved it, and then his dad's listened to it. So we're thinking, someone said Grant Fox would be an amazing guest. And I thought, oh shit, I'll shoot my shot with Grant. So send him a text. Again, a guy that doesn't do interviews. He doesn't do media. He was with the All Blacks at the time. Bit of a long shot. And he replies and he said, hey mate, love what you guys do. Listen to the episode with Ryan. Thought it was really well done. I'll be keen as to come and have a chat. Yes. So, and then you've got Grant Fox. And then you can go to other people in the rugby world and say, we've had Grant Fox on our podcast. Like, are you bigger than Grant Fox? You know, yeah. Come and have a chat.
COVID helped as well. You know, when, like you say, we'd started and then we wanted to continue it and we kind of worked out the technology eventually and then everybody around the world was kind of sitting there with time on their hands. So we were able to kind of continue and go through that. But I think back as well, there's just been kind of really serendipitous moments like Lance Cairns living at the back of one of our mates' houses in Gizzy. You know, that was a stroke of luck. Like, that's another guy that had done nothing. And then with the help of the ACC, they got Grab a Seat on board and flew us down to Gisborne. And we were able to sit there for an afternoon with a guy that had done fuck all interviews that couldn't physically do them before he had his cochlear implant. You know, those sorts of things are all pretty awesome. And we kind of had a little bit of an idea of being a bit strategic about things, like having Mike Lane on. Like
how did that come about?
Targeting people like that. Well, I mean, Stephen's working at NZME kind of has helped a little bit in terms of on the shop floor and through the Herald and seeing people around. But I can't remember how we got Lane.
Well, we had Dylan Cleaver on, who was friends,
right.
Who's good friends with Lane, and I was good friends with Dylan, and he sort of said Lane will do it. Lane will be keen. So yeah, that sort of just opened the door to the ACC, and then. Yeah, partnering with them has been a great move. So we were really confident with what we had. The product, what we were putting out there was great, but our audience was still quite small. We had quite a loyal following, but we didn't have any social platform of our own. You know, I think our Facebook page might have had less than 1,000 followers. Same with Twitter and Instagram. Like, we had no home, so we knew we needed to partner with someone with a big platform that could push us out. So we joined up with the ACC, and our growth, and we made a decision at the same time to release an episode every week. Up until then, it had been a little haphazard. It had been, it might have been 2 or 3 a month, and they'd be released on different days. But I listened to this podcast, Stephen Bartlett, Secret Diary of the CEO, and it was like how I've made $1 million a year doing a podcast. And he spoke about being consistent, being a part of people's schedules and lives, and knowing that on Monday morning or whatever it is, that a new podcast is going to be dropping and you don't miss. And I remember a conversation with Shay. I was like, let's just never miss. Let's every week we have a new podcast. Like let's just be disciplined enough to hit that mark. And the growth in line with joining the ACC and releasing a podcast every week, like if you looked at our graph, it is just like that was the moment where it really started to get momentum. I think we had Paddy Gower and Jimmy Neesham as our first 2 guests. They were, you know, pushing us on. The ACC's Instagram page has 70,000 followers. Their Facebook page is about 200,000. So it's just like all of a sudden, between two beers, you know, every week it's like between two beers.
It's back on again.
Yeah. And
there's your cup of coffee.
Yeah. and so that's been like 2 years now, and it's just, it's sort of grown and grown and grown. And like I was saying, there's been some real key episodes which have increased audience. Lance Cairns helped us get Chris Cairns. So Chris Cairns, again, didn't do any interviews about the match fixing allegations or his health battles or anything like that. So got him on front page of the Herald. Opened us up to people that had never heard of us before. They listened to Chris, liked it, went back and might have seen a few others. I mean, Jack Tame or Lance Cairns or whoever else was around. That was a big one. Paul Henry was another big one at the start of the year, and Mark Ellis. So it's kind of like those three that they transcend sport. They transcend our normal listener base. They catch the attention of New Zealand, like the stories on the Herald homepage. And the idea is that we've been creating these timeless profiles that people can go back and listen to at any time. So once they discover us, they go dip into the back catalogue and hopefully they stay there for a while.
Yeah. You were saying about the ACC. I remember being at Seddon Park, New Zealand, Australia, and having the ears in. And I'm pretty sure that because of the ACC, the crowd started appealing, and then they went upstairs, and then we got someone out, and we won that match.
Yeah, it's a crazy phenomenon, the ACC. It's such a unique thing to New Zealand, but such a movement. I see they've got the cricket commentary back again for the upcoming summer, and it's such good listening. Fuck, it's funny. It's that whole kind of crew of Lane, Wells, Leigh Hart, Jason Hoyt, like all those people, all those kind of people are such icons or such constants, I think, from upbringings. Even Matt Heath, like I used to watch Back of the Y, Masterpiece Television on like a Thursday night or whenever it was, and to be able to share some time with him is fuck. It blows me away. Like it's moments like those you kind of go, well, it's not like work. Like it's not work really. It is work, but it's kind of just amazing to kind of have access to those kind of people, and then like for them to be so normal as well is really, really awesome. I think what helps Stephen and I as well is that we're quite different in terms of interests, in terms of approach, in terms of kind of the way why we might sound quite similar, which a lot of people say, which I still don't get.
Yeah, when he throws to you the outro, I'm like, did you
Hang on a minute, I thought that was Shay.
But I think that works. I think the advantage that we've got over a lot of other people is that there's two of us, so there's two sets of ears listening. There's if someone's asking questions, the other person can be actively listening and vice versa, and taking things back or kind of picking up on different things, and we bounce off each other pretty well, I think.
Yeah, and it's easy to disarm. I feel like it's a tough, like one-on-one interviews is a real tricky thing to get right, and it's all set with tone. And I feel like our big advantage is we're able to disarm the guests early if it's feeling a bit stale or a bit stiff by going after each other or engage it or making fun of one another or just sort of setting the tone like that. You know, you're able to take it in a more light-hearted direction.
Yeah, like the Rogan tactic, bringing Jamie or pour a beer or smoke a joint or
Yeah.
bring
Well,
out the Tupperware container.
Yeah.
Yeah, the beer was an interesting one. Like, and then generally, second half of episodes are always better than first half because, whether it's alcohol kind of assisted or not, people have kind of relaxed by that stage, and they're not fearful of being tripped up or caught out. They've kind of got into a rhythm of a conversation, and generally speaking, the second half of episodes are always better than the first half.
Yeah, the old not the quickfire question of a bullet answer. They've been able to explain themselves and dive into their story and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always have a debrief. Well, sometimes after episodes, and we talk about when it got good or when it clicked over, and it's often about 10 or 15 minutes in, and you're like, yeah, that was a bit sort of stale at the start, but then you felt it. It was a question that they relaxed into, and then they sort of got into storytelling mode. I was like, that was when we had it,
Yeah. It's a real deliberate art form as well, trying to create that safe space that someone feels like they can lean into their story. And I think because we early on, I can't remember if it was a Tim Ferriss podcast that Stephen recommended for me to listen to about how to do our podcast. To not be afraid of silence.
Yeah.
And not want to fill a silence, and kind of, I think when people get into storytelling mode and they kind of almost feel like they've told their story or they're ready for you to move on, if you don't fill that silence, then they kind of feel like, oh, they still want to hear more about it. Okay, well then, and then this, and this. That's a consistent kind of piece of feedback that we get, is that we let people tell their story rather than kind of inserting ourselves into the narrative too much.
Yeah, no, I've listened and read that piece of content from Tim Ferriss a couple of times.
Yeah.
It's very good.
But you got to give a bit of yourself as well to get some back too. Like, we've learnt that along the journey as well, as like, as soon as someone
talk about Stephen shitting himself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Forgot about that. I'm going to offer up sacrificial Stephen story to make you feel more comfortable
about telling your story about shitting yourself. But it is like, it's the same thing. Like,
that's
we
Chris
started.
Barker. I retold that story today. I was like, oh, someone was talking about going to Japan. I said, oh, I heard a great story about Japan. My stepdaughter's about to go out. I hope she doesn't have a similar circumstance. Yeah.
But everyone's got it, eh? Everyone's got something that they can kind of relate to and bring to the table, and then you go, oh, yeah, fuck, they're just the same as everybody else.
Yeah, mine's a fishing boat in Stewart Island.
That's the Mark Ellis fishing boat in Stewart Island. That just makes me think of great white sharks straight away. Straight away.
I was feeding them, that was for sure.
Such a fear of mine. Yet I consume so much shark content.
You do. Love a Shark Week.
I do love a Shark Week.
Shark Week. Yeah. Why are you so sweaty? Awesome, guys. So where do people find you?
You can find us at betweentwobeers.com, Instagram.
Here's a question for you. Do people still use websites, do you reckon?
Yeah, it's a tough one, eh? Yes, is what I'd say.
Okay.
I don't know about this platform, though. That's the thing, isn't it?
I'm about the same. Like,
you guys are selling hats now, so
Need a website. Need a home.
Yeah, true. Yes, you can find us on betweentwobeers.com.
Yeah. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn,
TikTok,
all the socials.
TikTok. Are you on TikTok?
Yeah.
With
I haven't nailed it. That's for sure.
Yeah, we can introduce you to a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy from Tokoroa that's nailed it.
He's helped us.
He's a tyre changer. Well, now he's actually working in the gold mines, but yeah.
Yeah, we've had some great help from a guy, Marcus Logan.
Yeah.
What's his company? Fire Digital.
Yeah.
Who's changed our social media strategy.
Yeah. It's been a really interesting journey because for the longest time we didn't make any money, or we made enough just to cover the cost of petrol. And like, as this thing has grown, the money, the commercial side of it is starting to really ramp up, which allows us allows us to do things and invest in areas that we had just been doing ourselves.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, like, it was too much. We were doing editing and social media and cutting out video clips and just doing everything. Me and Shay were doing the whole 100% of the work. And it's like, it became a real burden. Like, you'd have this awesome episode, but I'm like, fucking hell, I've got to write a story for the Herald. I've got to cut out video clips. I've got to go through and edit the audio of the episode. I've got to write an intro, and then we've got to like figure out how to sell it on social media. And it would just be like week after week.
I did stuff too.
But we're
the royal eye.
we're in this really cool place now where we have people to help, and so the marketing side of it has always been our weakness. It's that's why we joined the ACC, because we didn't have our own social footprint, but we're working really hard to build that. So we're getting creative with Instagram and TikTok. I think we're up to 15,000 followers. Like, we've doubled our follower count in about 6 or 7 weeks. And we've got a real strategy now to just sort of be everywhere, and just the opportunities that have started to come and will come from it, of just people being aware of who you are. You know, like, we've got quite a number of speaking gigs coming up. And all it takes for that to get over the line is for someone to bring it up in a boardroom or an office or a thought session, and someone else to be like, oh yeah, I've seen a few TikToks of those guys, or I know, I've heard of them, I've listened to an ep. And then you sort of get green lit.
9 weddings?
Too many.
Oh, Seamus. He's a wedding guy.
Too many. I'm hanging up my wedding MC microphone for a while.
But it is weird how it's ticked over to being business owners now.
Yeah.
And we're paying contractors, and we're hiring, you know, and we're doing all this stuff. And it's like, wow, we've sort of been perfecting the art of the interview, but now we need to figure out how. I mean, our goal is to take it full time. And I like to think that the way things are going, it's a question of when, not if. But that means being a business. That means Between Two Beers Media. That means feeding off from the big audience we've got are all these different streams, and it's live Q&As and MCs and commentary and writing and TV stuff. But it's like, shit, all right, we need to put our business hat on for that. So we're kind of learning, you know, we're learning as we're going, but it's a really exciting thing to be thinking about, like starting your own company with your mate based on something you did in your garage 4 years ago.
That sounds awesome.
It's pretty cool. So yes, you can find us on all of those social platforms.
Yeah.
Between Two Beers. NZ? I don't even know what they are. .com?
I'll find it and put it in the show notes. Yeah. So my final question, lads, is each of you, what keeps you in flow? Do you have a quote or a way you live your life, or a mantra or something like that drives you along? Ice baths, fasting, you know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to beat Chip Kogi. What's his name?
Yeah. I don't have a quote, but I have realised that things that are difficult, I really enjoy taking them on and then enjoying them. So I think of there's 3 examples in my life of things which I hated, which now I love. So one of them is fasting. So I try to do intermittent fasting for, I don't know, maybe 20 hours a day. So most of the time I eat at 5 o'clock with my family. And that was hard as shit for ages. And it took a while to get there, but now it's the easiest thing ever. And it sort of regulates my weight. I just have like black coffee during the day. My appetite's shrunk. I just feel like it's the biggest life hack. If you're not a foodie and like food's not a really important part of your life, like for me, I don't really care. It just is such an easy way of figuring that side of my life out. The other one is swimming. I can't run anymore because I've injured my hips, and I hated swimming, and I was a terrible swimmer, and I really didn't want to do it. And then I got lessons, you know, an adult getting swim lessons, and it was really challenging to do that, and I could do 2 lengths and I'd be out of breath. And now I swim 3 or 4 times a week because it's the only way I can still get a workout in and get cardio in. And it's something I love now. I love going to the pool. I love like detaching and, you know, swimming and doing that. And the other one is cold showers. I was on a Wim Hof buzz a few years ago now, and I always thought the breathing part, there's 2 parts to the Wim Hof, there's the breathing and the cold immersion, and I always thought the breathing was the part I connected with the strongest. But 3 years later, I still have a cold shower I never have a hot shower. It's a cold shower every morning, every night. And
you don't turn it on until hot.
Nah,
all cold.
Middle of winter,
Wow.
and I love it. And again, it's something which was incredibly challenging. To start with, I could do 40 seconds and I'd shiver and I love the thought that I have conquered these things and sort of owned them. And I've realised that with every part of my life, it's the things which are the hardest that you are uncomfortable doing and becoming comfortable is, yeah.
Love that. What do you got for us, Seamus?
I was really impacted by the Resilience Project, Hugh Van Cuylenberg. So it was an audio book. It was a book. I digested as an audio book recommended to me by a mate of mine, Andrew Miller. And he talks about kind of 3 principles of gratitude, empathy, and mindfulness. And I don't nail it 100% of the time. But I think through formative years, like teenage years and early 20s, I went through quite a few challenging times. I reflected on this the other day, like I'd kind of even forgotten about it, but I had a very good friend, like a childhood friend, my first friend from when I was in Taupo, who he first had a pacemaker put into his heart when he was, I think, 15 or 16, and then had a heart transplant. And I remember I was triggered by memory. I was in Auckland, and I remember being at Green Lane Hospital, and he was 17, and his mum had asked me to come and visit him, and I'd seen him off and on through Waikato and had been up to visit him in Auckland, and she kind of just said, "Oh, look, you two have a moment to yourselves." And it was just me and him in the hospital room, and he burst into tears, and it was like a fucking why me? You know, why am I going through this? And I fucking had no idea, didn't know what to say or what to do or anything. And I think about that, and then a few years later, my mum had a cancer battle, and then my dad had an accident when I was a kid. So it was kind of a few things had kind of happened, and I think like that grounds you and kind of prepares you for some of the challenges that you face in later life. Not that I've kind of navigated all of them very well either, but I think that kind of empathy piece has really stuck with me, and kind of finding common ground with people. And then Mike Minogue said something about kind of leaving a room better than what you found it in. Now, kind of that's really resonated with me recently. So I guess it's kind of that empathy, mindfulness kind of part, but also gratitude, man. Like, I've been really lucky. Again, I think back to having a multicultural upbringing and going to my mum's village in the Solomon Islands, and you play cards by fucking candlelight, and it all sounds romantic and stuff. But it again, at a young age, when you're exposed to those kind of things, I'm really blessed that I've had a really well-rounded kind of upbringing with a few challenges in the mix of it as well. So I kind of, I try not to let too many things faze me. I get flustered sometimes, but just kind of being in the moment and kind of enjoying things. And it's from the Bible. My mum always said, "Don't let the sun go down on your anger." So I kind of always think, well, fuck, don't get shitty about things and go to sleep in a bad mood because you wake up feeling shitty as well. So, yeah.
Beautiful, guys.
Don't know whether that made any sense at all, but
no, absolutely.
Nice, man.
Yeah, it's funny with podcasting, you go through themes and stuff. And recently, it was run by Ārepa, and they had Nigel Beach, the
Awesome.
Wim Hof side of things, and Cooper Chapman from Australia, who's a surfer and gratitude side of things. So it's all culminated in what you do have both said. It's amazing. And I'd just like to thank you both for hosting me here up in Hamilton, ambassadors, and an awesome conversation. And thanks for paving the way for podcasters out there. It's awesome. Yeah.
No, thank you very much. This is the first time I think we've been asked to actually come on someone's podcast, so it's nice to pop our podcast cherry on a non-radio podcast platform, and to yourself as well. Like, fucking, without people who got onto it early doors in New Zealand as well, I wouldn't have a clue what podcasting was. So it's awesome that the community, I think, is coming up together.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool thing to be part of that as well.
And just for me, like, really appreciative that you've travelled over from Tokoroa to talk to us. Like, that's so cool. We're used to being on the other side of it, and it never felt like a job. We're always excited to do it, but it's really cool.